everyone, this is Ashley from the Learning Loft Academy, and today we are going to be going over interrogative adverbs. And that might sound a little bit frightening to those of you who know very little about English grammar, but I assure you it is not very frightening at all because interrogative adverbs only cover a group of 4 words. Just 4 words that no doubt you are very familiar with. When, why, how, and where. That's it. It's just these 4 words. They have a special name just for them. And for this video, you are going to need to be very familiar with adverbs and just some other parts of speech. Nouns and pronouns would be very helpful. It would be helpful for you to know what interrogative pronouns are, and we have a video on that. In case you haven't seen that video or you just don't want to, interrogative pronouns include who, whom, whose, what, and which. And the reason why I'm bringing them up is because by looking at this list, you might assume that any words that end in WH, of course, how is kind of an honorable one, that any words that start with WH are interrogative adverbs, but the issue is they're not, because 5 other ones are interrogative pronouns, because these words are used when you expect a noun in response. And the difference is that these 4 words are used when you are expecting an adverb in response. What does that mean? Let's look at when. Now, you need to be familiar with adverbs, but in case you just need a little refresher, an adverb is just a word that modifies a verb. So, this would include most words that end in ly. So, if you have the dog ran, you can add an adverb at the end of that. Quickly, or maybe slowly, happily, or sadly. These words are all modifying the word ran, not dog. They are modifying the verb. Okay? Review our adverb video if you still don't know much about that. So, if we ask a question using when here, when did you, we'll say study. When did you study? So, right off the bat, this question is assuming that you did study. We just want to know when. So, or maybe we're trying to figure out if you really did. So, when did you study? I studied earlier. Maybe you want to be vague. I studied earlier. Earlier is modifying studied, the verb. So this answer, this whole answer, is acting as an adverb in response to the question, when. Alright? So, what if we use where? What if we said, where did you study? I should have left that study word there. Where did you study? And you might say, I studied in my room. I studied in my room. Alright, in my room is modifying studied. Right? Because without that, then it's just I studied. Well, I know, but where? I studied in my room. It's modifying the verb studied. Now, what if we said, how did you study? How is actually a pretty vague word. You could have a lot of different responses with that. But how is asking, just in general, the manner. So, how did you study? I studied with flashcards. Alright, flashcards are a common studying method, especially for vocabulary. I studied with flashcards. Again, this phrase, bonus points if you know that's a prepositional phrase, that doesn't really matter, is modifying the verb studied. Right? We know you studied, but you're giving the method that you studied with. You are modifying that verb by giving a method for that. Right. Now if we said, why did you study? Why? Now, a couple of answers could be given here. A lot of people, especially kids and teenagers, are just going to say, because I have a test. They'll just start the sentence with because I have a test. And it's actually all right to start a sentence with because, but there are a couple of parameters for that. This is not really grammatical the way it is. I'm not going to go in depth on how you do that. I'll have a video on whether you can start a sentence with because or but or other sentences like that. Other words like that. But we're not getting into that here at the moment. You might say, because I have a test. It's implied that you have another phrase at the beginning, I studied. This is implied. It's not said, but it's implied. I studied because I have a test. And this whole phrase modifies this implied studied. Right? Because this in itself is not grammatical. You're not supposed to start a sentence with because or but. You're not supposed to. We have this implied phrase here. The respondee, the student or whoever is being asked, should have said this here at the beginning, but they didn't, likely out of laziness. They should have said this, but they didn't. But it's implied. And that happens quite a bit in conversational speech, but one of the wonders of language is that we know that already. We don't have to have that studied at the beginning. We just know it. Alright, so let's go over a couple of other example questions. Let's do something else. Going to the store. When did you go to the store? Right? When did you go to the store? You might say, I went yesterday. Yesterday is modifying went. Now, if you really wanted to be lazy in speech, you could just say yesterday. But it's implied that you said, at least, I went. Even more implied is, I went to the store yesterday. Alright. Now, why? Why did you go to the store? We're asking for a reason. And you might just start out with because. Because we needed bread. Implied, I went. And even more implied, to the store because we needed bread. And this whole phrase, because we needed bread, modifies went. And you can see how these sentences can get pretty big, especially when the implied part is added. How did you go to the store? How did you go? I went, if we just read it all out, I went to the store in my car. You could actually remove this to the store bit and it would still be grammatical. I went in my car. And this phrase modifies went. We're giving the method. And one more. Where did you go to the store? Well, that doesn't make sense, does it? That's not grammatical. Where did you go to the store? We have answered the question in our question, which means we would have to take, where did you go? We would just have to say, where did you go? I went to the store. To the store is modifying went. We could have went anywhere, but we went to the store. So if you've got, this is going to be the end of the video, but if you have any questions about how these words work, anything about interrogative adverbs, then ask us in the comments below, and we will get to your question as soon as possible. If you want to review our video on interrogative pronouns, because they work very similar to these words, but they expect nouns in response. So, but that's going to be it for now, and I'm going to see you in the next video. Happy learning.